Ever since Dad sent me a video link to the Doner Kebab YouTube video by Pro Home Cooks. If you didn't get a chance to see it, go ahead and watch it. It's actually really interesting. I've never heard about this sandwich, and they go through where the bread. It's actually it used to be a Turkish thing until they started doing it in Germany, and then it became really popular German street food. So the way the bread's made is still a Turkish style, but then the sauces and everything or how they do it in Germany. I'd like to try to make this at home. In this video, he attempts it at home and he's got different methods of doing it. I'm pretty much going to try to follow those steps, but the only difference is I don't want to make the bread he has. The bread, it looks good, but after reviewing different recipes online and everything, I realized that there's a ton of different ways to make the bread, and I'm trying to go for the actual old school Turkish way of making it. And with starting out, I am not going to use regular standard yeast because that is one strain of yeast for your bread. And I'm actually going to use a sourdough starter, which is I'm going to, for 10 days, culture and grow my own yeast and try it from that way and see if you get, because you get so much better flavor out of your bread. So let's go ahead and try to get this started. After watching the video, I found out there's a couple places in New York City that actually make this sandwich. And I went to one and I tried it, and it is a really delicious sandwich. So I'm actually excited to try to do this at home and got everything I need to make this happen. So let's get started. So culturing my own wild yeast for bread. The reason, like I said earlier, that it's preferred over store-bought yeast is because store-bought yeast is only one strand of yeast, and when you actually culture your own, you have multiple strands of yeast growing, and you get a lot more flavorful bread. And one thing they recommend is using whole wheat bread or like a rye bread because you get a lot more different strains with that than you do natural unbleached, well, not natural, but unbleached white flour. But what I'm going to try to do here, this is kind of my own little setup here. I have two types of flour I'm going to start off with to try to start growing the yeast. Right here this is the flour that I use for my pasta. It's actually a soft wheat flour. And I figured since I don't have actual 100% wheat flour, this is what's left for my crop over the summer of growing my own wheat. And then this bag here is just a bag of whole wheat berries. And I got my flour mill. So what I'm going to do is grind this down to a powder and add it to there. And I'm going to do 50-50. And then with 85-degree water, let it sit 24 hours. And hopefully the yeast start to come to life and start eating the nutrients that are in the flour. So you can hear I'm grinding up the whole wheat berries right now to get it into a fine flour that we can use. My ratio is going to be, it's 50 grams of the soft wheat flour and 50 grams of the whole flour bean that has just been ground into flour and then sifted. I'm going to mix that with 100 grams of lukewarm water. I always was told lukewarm is just lukewarm, like room temperature, but they said for the best results, try to get it at exactly 85 degrees. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm temping my water. It's coming out of the sink until I get it at exactly 85 degrees. Once it's in the jar and mixed really well, that's all we need to do. Now we just put a loose fitting lid on it and let it sit for 24 hours. And then hopefully the natural yeast that's in flour will come to life and start eating the nutrients in the flour. And then in 24 hours, when they start to get hungry because they're running out of nutrients, we got to do a feeding. And we got to do that every day for like 10 days until we got really strong and lots of active yeast. So it's been 24 hours. Nothing amazing, but we have a few bubbles that came up. So that means life has officially sprung. So we have active yeast. So now it's time to actually get rid of some and feed it. So now with the feeding, if we were to just constantly keep adding flour and water so we can eat the nutrients from the flour, this jar would be so full and well overflowing by the 10th day. So what we got to do is actually start throwing some away. So I'm only going to keep 50 grams of what we had. So the original weight of the jar was 431. So we had 50 grams of that, and that's what the weight should be after I spoon some out. So that's what we're going to throw away. And we kept 50 grams of what is now officially active, and we're going to feed it exactly the same ratio I did yesterday. 50 grams of the soft wheat white flour and 50 grams of the whole wheat flour that we made, and then 100 grams of water. That way it can eat, and it'll continue getting strong and multiply. We got 50 grams of each, and now 100 grams of 85-degree water. And then we can stir it very good and then let it sit for another 24 hours. Another thing I found out is I have my house at 68 degrees, which actually was very cold, and the reaction didn't start until I put it in the oven. I just kind of preheated it just a little bit to get it warm, and now I got it in there with the actual incandescent light bulb on, and that's just enough to keep it warm enough to, well, there it's saying it's 67, so we have to warm it up a little bit, but we want it at least room temperature. My house is not room temperature, so we got to keep it a little warm for the reaction to continue. And essentially that's the feeding we're going to do every day, so it doesn't run out of nutrients until the 4th day. I'm going to start using all-purpose flour, unbleached, and then we're going to run it till the 10th day, and then hopefully what happens is within a couple hours it doubles in size, and then we have fully active wild yeast, and that's what we want to start baking with. So stay tuned for more. We're now at day 3, and it's been really active. It was actually this high earlier, and now it deflated, so that's a good sign. So now it's out of its food, so I'm going to give it another feeding the same way we did the other days, and we're going to go on to day 4. We're now officially on day 10 of the yeast. It seems to be coming out pretty good, and we're almost ready to make our sandwich. But what I'm going to do first, just like Pro Home Cooks do, I'm going to use the same recipes. I'm going to make a white sauce, a harissa sauce, and then seasonings for the chicken. So let's start with that right now. For the harissa sauce, to give the sandwich a little bit of a kick, we got red bell pepper, and then I got 6 chilies, which I'm probably not going to use all the chilies. Depends how hot it's going to be. But I have them coated in olive oil. I'm going to cook this at 450 degrees for 15 minutes till they're just about starting to get black. And then while that's doing that, we're going to switch to the chicken. For the chicken marinade, I've put in here, I got cinnamon, coriander, cardamom, thyme, oregano, cumin, garlic powder, and smoked paprika. I'm going to blend it, and then when I put it with the chicken, I'm going to use some lemon juice and olive oil and then let that sit for 24 hours. But I'm also going to add some of this mixture to the harissa sauce too, so it the hot sauce also has the chicken flavor sauce as well. I added 4 tablespoons of the new seasoning, some olive oil, and some lemon juice. Mixed really well. Now I'm going to put that in the bag and let it sit in the fridge overnight. And then that should be the marinade for the chicken. And for the white sauce, I did 3/4 cup of yogurt, half a cup of mayo, zest of a whole lemon, half of a lemon's juice, 1 fresh garlic clove, and then freshly chopped dill. And then we're going to adjust it by taste on if we want it more acidic or more salty. So I left them in about 10 minutes longer, and I set the temperature higher because when it was done, they just weren't. I want that like black, hard roasted flavor in it. So now they're the way I want them. I'm going to let them cool. I'm going to peel all the skins off, put them all in the blender, maybe a few less judging by the heat of what I want. We got 3 garlic cloves, tablespoon of olive oil, an 1/8 cup of vinegar, and we're going to put some of the chicken spice in there. We're going to blend it well, and then that should be our harissa sauce. So we got the chicken marinating now. We got the white sauce that's done. That has a really good flavor to it. Tastes just like the white sauce you get in Hello Carts in New York. You can definitely taste the garlic in it. Once I put it in the fridge for 24 hours, all those sharp flavors are going to blend really smooth, and that's going to be a damn good white sauce. The harissa sauce is just a great flavor to it. It's between mild and medium. So you taste it. You taste a whole lot of good flavors. You can really taste the cumin in it. But you do get a little bit of a pinch in your throat, which is fine. but that means these last 2 peppers I'm not using. So I basically used 4 chilies in this, and I think it came out really good with 4. A little bit of a burn, but pretty damn good. So now I'm going to put these in the fridge and let them marinate for 24 hours, and then we'll go back to the making of the Turkish bread. We are currently on day 11, and this is the recipe that I decided for the Turkish bread. We'll be using 3 cups all-purpose flour. I am going to still use some dried yeast instead of just my yeast starter. I'm going to actually do a combination of both. Sugar, salt, melted butter, egg white, and oil, and then water as needed. And then I'll do a glaze on top with egg yolk, milk, and then the Nigeria seeds. I don't know if I'm saying that right, or Nigel seeds. And then the sesame seeds. So let's start with making the dough. I had to make a real quick correction. For some reason I wrote down tablespoons of salt instead of teaspoons, but that's fixed. And now I'm going to add 100 grams of the wild yeast that I've been cultivating for 11 days. There we go. Now I'm just going to cover it and let this sit for an hour or 2, and hopefully we get some good rise out of this. So I got the meat out of the fridge. I got it tightly packed, so it's going to cook it like shawarma. Rotisserate it vertically, and since they're chicken thighs, they're a little fattier, so the fat's going to run down on itself along with the marinade seasoning that's on it, and it should taste great. Now we wait. So I let it rise for an hour and a half instead of just an hour. Then I kind of rolled it out and kneaded it and got it into 3 separate balls. And now what I'm going to do is let these set up for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to roll them out flat to about the size of a pizza, each one, and then we'll go from there. Here are 4 of the most common toppings that we're going to put on it. We're going to do some tomato, some red cabbage. I'm not a fan of red cabbage, so I'm only going to do a little bit of this. Some fresh chopped sweet onion, and some lettuce. And then with the meat, the bread, the harissa sauce, the white sauce, it should be amazing. Toppings are all cut up and ready to rock. Man, and this is starting to look how nice and golden brown that meat's getting. Oh man, does it smell good in here. Whew. So I got one rolled out. Try not to push this one down too far. The first one, I think I kind of pushed a little too heavy and it's kind of flat. It's in the oven. I hope it comes out. I don't know. Might not. This one I tried to leave a little bit of thickness to it. Use some egg yolks with milk. Spread it on as a glaze. Put the Nigeria seeds, if that's how you pronounce it, on the sesame seeds. And now I'm going to stick it in the oven at 375 for 20 minutes, and hopefully we're going to get some delicious Turkish bread. Oh, just look at the fat dripping on that. Oh, listen to that sizzle. So here's the finished one that just came out. I left it in a little bit longer just to try to get a little golden on the top and get a little bit of crustiness in it. We'll let this sit to cool for a little bit. We'll cut it up into quarters, and then we're going to make our sandwich. The thin one I was worried about is right here. It came out fine, and you're able to cut it open, but because it's so thin, they're really big sandwich pieces. So we're going to try the thick one first and see how it goes. So this one did come out a lot better. Able to cut them into nice sandwich pockets. Good taste. The bread kind of has a hint of lemon to it, and there is no lemon in it at all. That's odd. I'm wondering if the wild yeast put that flavor there because it's more acidic. But here's some hot chicken that I just cut off the spit. Let's start assembling this delicious sandwich. So here's the first one. Put white sauce, a little harissa sauce, some chicken, lettuce, onion, some tomato, and a little bit of red cabbage, and then some more white sauce. So we're going to give this sandwich a bite and see how it tastes. Calm down. The final thought, that was amazing. I even let Darla try some, and now she's an addict. She won't get off the table. Get! But the flavor in the chicken, all the toppings, the harissa sauce, the white sauce, and even the bread with that little tangy flavor to it. Everything mixed together is just, it is definitely an amazing sandwich. I gotta give the Turkish and the Germans credit for that. What do you think, Heather?
Good.
It's all over her face. There we go, round 2. Here, Heather cut hers in half instead of using it like a pouch. That's a good idea, and you get a lot more fuller too. God damn, this is good. Here's another one where you can see the sauce just oozing out of it, and the chicken and all the deliciousness. These are getting wrapped for Mom and Dad to try.